In our last 3 minutes that we have with Nick, I would love to transition to what we think the opportunity is for scientists in this space of misinformation and the space, the place for scientists in actually combating and not just defending the profession, but also being effective in the forces that seek to destroy them.
Okay, so there's like tons of different conversations that we could be having here, right? Like we could be having a conversation around how do you convince people one-on-one? How do you scale that to parasocial relationships? How do we, um, we've hit on a bunch of them already, but to your specific question, I see a huge opportunity. So my aggregator, Canada Health Watch, our audience doubled in the week after Inauguration Day, and it wasn't Canadians. The people who came in after that week were all American. So like we had this teensy American segment in our audience pre-inauguration, and then it suddenly just ballooned to essentially match the population of our Canadian segment, which is just crazy. So I've been working overtime, with eyes on American news in addition to my original wheelhouse, which is Canadian. But all of this to tell you, my what my anecdote illustrates is there is an opportunity for a group like this to create something like this, like the Accountability Journalism Institute, or something else under a different brand that is like under the umbrella that provides Americans with a source of trusted health and science news. People are looking for it. And one of the first thoughts that a lot of people had, those people who flooded into my ecosystem, was, well, let's go and see what Canada's got because they don't have a fascist government. So like that's happening. Other people in Canada are starting to get wise to it, and they're starting to capitalize on it. But I think this group could take huge advantage of it as well. Maybe using the alt branding that's become popular, right? Like alt CDC, alt FDA, like that kind of thing. That's another down the road conversation. But all of this to say, I'm not typically one to put a positive spin on things, but I think I can. With that, you guys have an opportunity. People are looking for. There will always be a market for reality.
Love it.
We're
What
also early. I think people are out there despairing and trying into the cornflakes, and we're here doing something, and that's an advantage, and we should, really grasp the momentum and push, because, you've been talking about this stuff, writing about it for a long time, and we're there already. We know what's going on. You predicted it, it's happening, and we're here doing something about it. So that is a real advantage as well.
yeah.
I feel like we've done a pretty good job of attacking bad science, but the scientific community has done a terrible job of amplifying good science, and I think we need to build the tools to do that. People don't have a place to go, when some ridiculous assertion is made or some terrible study makes the news. There's no place to point people to and say, look, here we've aggregated good studies, we've distilled them. We've got a group of scientists. If anybody disagrees with what we're saying, we welcome their input, but their input has to be in front of serious scientists and not some, shouting match on Twitter.
Well said. Other scientists here have other good ideas for how scientists can be involved in this?
I'll say, one other thing. So I'm starting a new class at the University of Washington on science communication, misinformation, and the media. And we had our first class today. My project for the class is to build a new kind of journal where we invite the community to engage around important papers and around misinformation and good information. So I'll kind of, as that evolves, it might be nice to get some of this group engaged with that student group.
I love that because it brings us back to community. And I think in times like this, the opposition wins when they divide. And inevitably, when you come together, the force of the unifying force, the pie is greater than the sum of its parts. So We are at time, but before we close out fully, we've touched on 1,000,001 things, and part of the purpose of this call was to generate energy and to generate a feeling that perhaps there is something we all can do. And so I wanted to know, before we close out, if there is anything that anybody wants to say. I'm more than happy to unmute and give you the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all agree that probably none of us here predicted how bad things would get so quickly. But to the extent that anyone predicted it, people on this phone call did. Been warning about this for, in Dr. Gorski's case, 20 years. So I think that we have to kind of pass each other's names on to journalists and to try to get our word out there and really work together. I know that, some journalists have reached out to me for various things, and I've recommended people's names here. So because I think that to the extent that we have just woken up to the threat, a lot of people who are in extreme denial, are really just sort of waking up to the threat too. So I think we need to be prepared for a lot of people to join our ranks, and to not have my attitude of "screw you," I've been trying to tell you. So.
There's a place for that, but
Well,
yeah.
well, on the other hand, I do think, there's no one better at having amassed a collection of what these people actually said early in the pandemic.
Well, I'm not talking about the bad faith people like McCary and but
Well,
just
the sad thing is he's probably the least bad of the bunch at the moment.
Well, hold on a second. Before we get
No,
to
no, I'm just,
baseball, I saw Natalia unmuted, so I want to give her a chance to.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something that, yes, I agree totally with Joho and David. We've been trying to warn everybody. We've been reading history books of Nazi for the last 5 years, at least on my part, and before, well, considering where I come from. But the other thing is, I happen to live in the state of Florida, and as you're discussing the response, we have kind of had our Florida Department of Health being hijacked for longer than the country's Department of Health. So I know how it works at the level of the state or departments of health that are cities, counties, and basically when you get email that comes from your highest official in your state that goes to optometrists, nurse practitioners, respiratory therapists, whoever gets licenses from the state Department of Health, all practitioners get the same statement that vaccines don't work, I will recommend against. Then again, promoting MAHA and all that stuff. Whatever we do, I do believe in engagement with communities, but that works faster and that works more global, what they do. So, and this is how we lost physicians, because, we've tried to work with primary care doctors, trying to bring them to the right side, but they got to believe, and their minds got completely misinformed, and they believed what comes from the Department of Health was the support of all the conferences that happened in Florida in the last 5 years. So I just think that, I do believe in science communications, and I do believe that it has a role, but I also think that it's not the most powerful tool, and it's not the most, none of us has a platform of Joe Rogan. So, and that's why we will not have the outreach that they will have now. So I don't want to be the devil's advocate. I'm not sure what the right way to do. They're probably multifaceted strategy, but I also think that we have a lot of physicians, we have scientists who joined the dark side, right? So they're not uneducated people. They are very well educated people. But yet some of them genuinely believe what they're saying. So that's pretty much my 2 cents.
I think it's an important point that you bring up, but it's also important to remember that even Joe Rogan started in a garage, and I don't think Joe Rogan set out to be Joe Rogan before he became Joe Rogan. So, even though the odds might seem irrationally impossible at this stage, perhaps a little bit of engagement as I say, sometimes delulu is the solulu. Sometimes being a little delusional is the solution because you can suspend reality long enough to do something a little crazy that maybe might be the difference.